What's good, everybody? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be performing for you a haircut that I think personally is on my top 3 list of favorite haircuts to do. Just want to point out a couple of features about this hairstyle. I'm actually going to be going from short hair in this region, below this region here, to a long brush back on top all throughout here, as you can see. Just wanted to show you a quick back angle. So for me, what I see in my head is this classic ducktail look, which just means that I'm taking all the hair from the side and brushing it into the direction of the middle here. And even on the right side, I'm doing the same. And I think the most important thing to notice is that this is all symmetrical. From this side angle, you can see also that I am doing a drop fade towards the back. So just around the O-bone here, I'm gonna be actually making sure that the fade happens just below the O-bone, just so that I can keep enough weight in this area here to mask the actual head shape itself. Notice too, around the nape of the neck, I'm actually just gonna be doing a skin taper. Giving you guys a profile shot here. Notice in the corners here, there is a bit more of what I would say is a square shape. So what I wanna do is I wanna keep the angles on top as well, parallel to these square shapes here in order to accentuate his facial structure. So you can see just from the top here, this angle that I have is parallel, a little bit extended out from the head shape that I had below. So the angles here and here are gonna be parallel to that chin shape. All right guys, so I wanna talk in full detail about this hairstyle. You guys are gonna learn a lot. Let's get it going. Just a quick 360 of my client's haircut before we started. I'm gonna be making a center profile guideline right down the middle. And what this is gonna help me do is make sure that both sides are symmetrical. I can always refer back to this center point as a guide, whether I'm doing scissor work or to the outsides if I'm doing clipper work. But for the most part, I'm gonna make sure that I run this line down the center using the bridge of his nose or his eyebrows all the way to the back. Okay, so I'm just gonna freeze this frame here, and what I really wanna point out is how I laid the comb on top of the apex. And I laid it at a 90-degree angle just to show you really quickly that the head from the apex really does curve all the way down to the front of his hairline or the fringe area here. And what I wanna do is, what I wanna point out is that 90-degree angle that I made with the comb and my finger, this area within here is where I'm gonna be making sure my stop point is for this triangle section that I'm going to create in order to section out the front of his head or the fringe area. Now I'm actually going to take that point from the apex just in front of it, and I'm going to run it all the way down to the corner on one side and right down the middle to the right panel as well to the other side. And what this is going to do is going to create for me a triangle section, which is going to be the disconnection from the fringe to the back area, which I have 2 panels to be symmetrical. And here's the angle that I wanted to show you from the top. I sectioned out the fringe, and I actually want to continue my sections this way. So as those diagonal sections you saw from the side, they get continued actually just like this from the top. And what's very important is I need to show you guys exactly how we are going to be angling this. So your angle of where you elevate the hair is going to ultimately decide what the shape is going to be. So I want to make sure that I draw this out as consistently as possible on both sides, just to show you what it takes for it to be symmetrical. So from this area here, I need to make sure that as the head rounds, I am pulling out 90 degrees from the head shape, okay? So as the head starts to round, I'm actually gonna be making sure that these angles are going outwards with that round head shape. Until it gets to the very middle, I'll be pulling straight upwards. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna create balance all across from left to right on both panels. All right, so here I go. I'm gonna go in with my sections. I wanna make sure that the hair is really wet. You're gonna see that instead of a neck strip, I ended up using a towel for my client because I'm gonna be spraying that much water throughout this haircut. His hair's not super long on the sides, and he got his haircut 2 weeks ago, so I'm only taking off enough hair in order to freshen up this haircut. But what I really want you to notice is the angle that I'm cutting at. Notice how I tilted the client's hair. I tilted the client's head in order to make it easy for me to attack the angles that I explained previously in the last diagram. The angle that I want to cut at is the angle of the comb here, making sure that I'm working directly off of the base of where the hair lies, creating that shape all the way through that right side panel. As I get to the back, notice that I also vertically am changing my angle in order to make it square at the top and then starting to round it as it gets to the back as well. So keep an eye on my angle, keep an eye on my tension, keep an eye on the way I use my comb and angle my fingers in order to create that consistent shape. And notice also how I am manipulating the client's head to better my angle and make it easier for me ultimately. I'm just going to repeat the same on both sides. You guys can see how my sections are pretty consistent, and also they are the width of the comb all the way through, so that I'm not using too much over direction. I'm actually just cutting off of the base of the hair straight out from where the hair lies at the bottom. All right, so that's it. I did the left and right side. Now what I want to do is I want to create a double center parting just so I can make a section right down the middle. This is going to set my length for the fringe. So I'm actually going to go to the side of the client. Freeze frame for you guys here. I want to show you how his actual head shape. Now you can see clearly because I laid all the hair down, it's pretty round, and from the apex it drops down to the front, as I said earlier. But what I really want to show you is the angle my comb is at, is the angle that I want to pull the hair, and this is going to be my cutting line. Okay, so as you can see, it is square. It might even be slightly triangular as it gets to the front. Just showing you that the direction that the hair is going to travel is going to be straight upwards from where the base of the hair is on the scalp. Okay, so notice how my lines as I'm getting to the apex are actually shorter. Okay, so that means that you can expect when you have the hair pulled upwards that the hair at the front has a lot longer of a length to travel. Notice how this is my shortest line here. If I draw a straight line across, or somewhat of a straight line for you guys, you can see that the hair actually has a lot more length as it gets to the front in this area here. All right, so just keep that in mind as you're going through your sections. You should expect that this is going to happen already, because as you're strategizing it, you can tell that some hairs are going to be shorter than others, but we're doing it in such a way to manipulate the hair to sit how we want to at the end of the haircut. And now you can see I'm at the side of the client, making sure that I create that shape so I can view it from the side, making sure that the front is long enough to be square with what's behind it. And I'm gonna explain this in a second here. I just take a look at what I'm doing and I'll explain it right now. I'm gonna freeze the frame for you guys to go more in depth. As I freeze frame the fringe for you guys, what I really want to show you is down the middle here. What I'm doing is I'm taking that center profile line that I created and pulling it straight up in the air. Trying to make this line as straight as possible for you. I'm still getting used to this drawing pad. And then notice how the hair from the corners of the recession are over directing all the way towards the middle. So what I want you to make sure is that your fingers lying directly above 90 degrees from the center of the head here. And that what that will do is that will create a square shape, because as his head curves, what we're actually doing is we're creating longer lengths to the outsides and a shorter length towards the middle in order for it to end up square at the top. So there it is, guys. I over directed everything to the middle, and I'm just making sure that I connect it to a little strand to the back to make sure all of it flows nicely as I brush it back. I'll be taking off about 2 inches horizontally and then getting just behind the hairline to create somewhat separation using my razor. And what that's going to do is going to allow it to just stand up a little bit nicer and get that volume at the front of the head. Quickly prep the hair with some texturizing spray while it's wet. And I just want to show you really quick, take note of how I do my blow drying technique. I'm moving the blow dryer with my brush at the same pace, making sure that I do not overheat the client's head and burn his scalp. I want to make sure that I style it in the direction that I want it to flow for later on. I'm going to do the same on all the way out throughout the haircut, and I want to make sure that this hair is fully dry before I go and attack it, making sure that it's dry from the top, starting from the back to the front on all panels until it's fully dry, finishing it with some cold air just to seal the cuticle. All right, I want to freeze this frame for you guys and just show you really quickly where I'm going to be placing my guidelines for this haircut. So at the top here, right where the corner of the recession or the hairline is, I'm going to be taking this line all the way down to just on top of the parietal ridge. And this is where I'm going to be blending my number 4 with the grain, meaning that I'm going to be going in this direction here. Notice how the hair is flowing backwards. So I'm going to be taking it in a direction with the grain first, and then coming up from underneath with my number 4. So the clipper direction is going to be going this way. Underneath here, I have my temple peak point, and this, I'm gonna take it about, let's say maybe ½ inch above it, and this is where I wanna place my number 1. My number 1 is gonna go all the way around, meaning it is gonna hit this area on top of the ear here. And then after that, I'm actually just gonna go underneath from the top of the ear, just where the hairline ends on the edge here, and I'm gonna take this towards the temple arch area here. So this temple arch area is a fixed point of reference on both sides, and you guys can use this in order to make sure that your fade is also symmetrical. Anything underneath here with a little bit of space is going to be fully shaved with my shaver. And then I'm going to actually reverse my guidelines really quickly. I'm not going to explain it too much, but I'm just going to make sure that the beard blends in as well. So here is a little bit about where you can see that I'm going to be placing my shaver and the liner to create that tapered look, as well as my number 1 guideline here, and my number 4. Keep in mind this is with and against the grain. Let's get the fade down. All right guys, let's go in with the clipper work. This is me going with the grain and then quickly against the grain. Notice I don't want to go too high up into my scissor work, creating a new line, but what this number 4 is going to do around the parietal ridge is going to make enough of a square shape for me to get right under it with my number 1. Like I said at the beginning of the video, or closer to the beginning when I did the diagram, is I'm actually going to do this line just above the temple peak point. With my liner, I want to make sure that I'm creating a straight line from the outer edge of the hairline, just in front of the ear at the top there, and going straight across to that temple arch area. I'm not going to shave off too much of the beard either, just because I still want to fade it in. So I'm just going to make enough to make my guidelines clear before going up now with a 0.5 with my number from my number 1 line about halfway down to the liner. And I'm just going to work in this sideburn area because I'm not fading it all the way on top of the ear. I'm actually just keeping it in front of the ear. So I'm using the right corner of my clipper here in order to not affect the area that's behind the ear at all. I'm going to go in with my lever, fix it to go from 0.5 to 0.25 and 0, lightly flicking out. Make sure you don't put too much pressure, let the clipper do the work. And you guys can see how easy it is to knock out this line if you don't try too hard to knock it out with the pressure of your hands. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly show you a little visual of how I fade the beard into the actual length of the current length of the beard. And then I'm going to continue to knock out the next line, which is my number 1 line, keeping in mind that I have number 4 to number 1 in order to get rid of the rest of this panel. I'm going to go in with my number 1.5 guard, and I'm just going to slightly go up halfway into that number 4 with it open. It's technically a number 2 at that point. And then slowly start to knock out that number 1 line and then complete my blend on this panel. You guys can see how I changed direction. If you notice closely, if you trained your eye well enough, you can see that the hair growth pattern changes in that area just behind the temple, just below the parietal ridge. So I have to change the angle of my clipper in order to go against the grain. just keep a close eye on it. Don't look so close to your client all the time. Make sure you're stepping back using your mirror just to see different angles and to give you the best accuracy on how to blend this fade out without pushing it up too high, and while keeping enough contrast in certain areas to make sure that it blends nicely into the scissor work that we work so hard to maintain. It's all in the details, guys. You can see that I spend a lot of time detailing, just as much time as I do setting my guidelines, if not more. And you guys can expect that every client is going to be a little bit different. So make sure you customize these haircuts and go the extra mile for them, because that's what's going to keep them coming back to you. So let's knock this down on the other side in the exact same order. And while I have a couple minutes to talk to you guys, and I really want to say how this whole situation that's going on. Everybody's kind of just at home on lockdown, and our barbershop is currently closed. It is a sad time, but I hope that everybody can find light in this situation to spend time with their families and to keep yourselves balanced mentally. Make sure that you guys are still staying healthy physically and mentally, and man, count your blessings, because at the end of the day, times like this are tough, and you never know how much time you have to do things you love, like cutting hair especially. So I really miss being in the shop, but man, filming these videos for you in isolation is still keeping me sane. So I hope you guys can find that same zen experience in cutting hair, even if it's just maybe for someone in your household. There's still time to practice. So just make sure you guys are sanitizing yourselves and keeping safe. Check out hairstyle number 1 of this versatile haircut. I'm going to be doing a little bit of an off-centered split down the middle with a featured fringe, just a little hook at the front. Just a little flavor for you guys, and then I'm gonna be taking it back to the classic traditional look. Side comb over, a little bit of a diagonal part, super proper. That's a sick look right there. I love that one. The next one I'm gonna do for you is something that's a little bit more slicked back. Now I don't want to wet the hair too much. This is just your traditional slick back straight down the middle. The next one I want to do is more modern. I think a lot of the things now are like super textured, a lot of the hairstyles, and this is a textured loose hairstyle for you, still on the same haircut. This is what it looked like before. And this is the final product. Clean, hey? You guys can see how all the work we put into the scissors to the back, how you really want to see all the work that you showed, show it in your styling. So take the time to style this hair and show your client what it can look like, because at the end of the day, when they go home and style it, they'll be thanking you, and they're going to be making sure that they come back to see you next time.